Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel, and in this video we are going to build out the starter storefront using Next.js and Shopify Storefront APIs, which you can use as a starting point for building out your own custom storefront. It includes all the basic functionalities like authentication, login, sign up flow, getting all the collections, getting all the products by collections, and when you click on a product, you're getting the product and you can add to cart and all the CRUD operations that are involved and also the checkout. So let's get started. Okay, so now the basic overview of the app. So the way I have structured this is already have some helper functions, and also if we go to our store right now, there's nothing but a navbar that I implemented. It's just a very simple navbar, and I'm calling it minimal store because we'll just keep things very minimal. So the thing that we have is an app router. In that we have an authentication route that we will see right now how to do the authentication part here. But before that, let's explore other parts, which is basically layout, and in that I'm using providers. So which is coming from this, which is just a provider for React Query or TanStack Query. And the other thing that we have is component. I usually divided into two folders, UI and view. In UI, I keep very small components, and view like big components. And the other part that we have is GraphQL, so that we can keep all the GraphQL queries at one place. So we'll be using this GraphQL query, which is for the authentication part, and we'll explore next. Okay, after that we have hooks. So use debounce, usual hook, and then I have another hook which is implemented, which uses GraphQL request, which gives you a GraphQL client so that you can make GraphQL queries, and we will wrap it around the TanStack React query. So the way it works is, let's go, and I've created two hooks, which is uStorefront query and uStorefront mutation. So uStorefront query takes in all the parameters which usually React query takes. So what you have to do is pass in the query function, and that query function, what we are doing is using GraphQL client, which is defined here, and we are using that client to make the GraphQL request, and the similar thing goes for here, but in a mutation manner. And then we have a library which only have CN class, and next we have is a Shopify client. So it's another GraphQL request client, but this is for server side only and not for making request in the client components. So that's why I created like two different clients. So what it is doing is basically creating another GraphQL client, and I have another helper function which takes in the query and the variable. For query is basically what the queries that we are going to pass in. The variables are the variables for that particular query. So I'm just calling it fetch GraphQL here. That is happening, and also defining some helper function. For example, get product. Instead of writing this, I am just writing an helper function so that we can perform these actions. Another thing that I have is types. So I have like these types already defined, which is for customer create response and customer update response. And this customer response also have like Shopify GraphQL TS. This is a auto generated GraphQL type, which I'm doing through CodeGen. This is like GraphQL CodeGen CLI. So what we do is we pass in the GraphQL schema, and it will automatically generate all the types that is required. And after I think that is it. Okay, so the first thing that we are going to implement is our authentication part in our storefront. But before doing that, I just want to give you like how to get started and set this up. Basically two things, two envs that we need is basically the API URL and the access token. And this would look something like this. And the access token, you can grab it from going to your Shopify admin for your storefront and searching for headless. I already have this app installed. You go to this app, install it, add your storefront, go to the storefront API, click on manage, and once you're there, you'll find this public access token. Copy it and paste it here basically, and your store name, you will find it somewhat like this. So I'm just using this demo store here for right now, and yeah, that's about it. Okay, so I also have something already set up for authentication. So I have two components, which are sign up and login. And in the authentication, I have a show register state. and we're using some new keys for handling cookies. We are doing cookie based authentication here. So this is a customer access token which tells us if we are already logged in or not, and if we already are logged in, then we push it to the home page. Otherwise we do not, and we render this. So let's see what it is like. Oh, okay, we are already logged in. So let me clear out the cookies first so that we can test this. Okay, so now if I try to go to auth, it should render. Yeah. So let's see the login component. Okay, so in the login component, I already have some boilerplate code set up using React hook form and also form components from ShatCN. So let's see, I have a login schema which will take in email and the password, and with minimum 8 characters, and it should be email. And then we have a is loading state which we will use while making the mutation API call using use storefront mutation that we talked about earlier. And then we have router, and then we are using use from hook, and we are passing in our schema, and the default values are empty strings. And this is where we are rendering our label and the inputs. And we also have a one more button which is just for toggling between the login and the sign up screen. And yeah. Okay, so now let's implement our on submit function. So what we are going to do is first to set is loading to be true, and then we are going to open up our try catch block, and in there what we are going to do is make an request and use mutate and pass in the query which is gonna be called customer access token create. I already have this query defined and pass in these variables. So let's explore what customer access token create query looks like. It's a mutation, and what we are passing in these is email and the password. And what it does is it uses that email and password and give us the customer access token. And also if there's an error, it also returns us that. So what we have to do is we have to check if we have any error. So if response dot customer access token create dot customer user error dot length, that means we have an error and we throw the error. Otherwise we set the cookie for 30 days. And yeah, for any other reason this query fails, then we'll also catch that and also just toast it out. And then finally we set the loading to be false. Okay, so after login we also want to after setting up the cookie, we also want the router to push it to the main homepage. So let's try that. I'm just gonna try with my email. Okay, so I already had that account, that's why I got logged in, and that means it is working correctly. So I'll just delete it again, and let's try implementing the sign up flow. Okay, so now let's explore the sign up component. I already have this boilerplate done for this one as well. So using Zord and also using a helper function called refine, which help us to validate stuff. So and also to pass in that to the React hook form, we use something called hook form resolver Zord. So it takes in the Zord schema and help us in validation and also the type definition. So first name, last name, email, password, confirm password. And what we are doing is we are matching if the data.password is equals to .data.confirm password. And then again passing that schema to the use form hook. And then we're using Zord's resolver from hook form resolver, and then passing in the Zord resolver, and then passing the sign up schema in that. Also we have to implement this on submit. We'll get to it. Let's see what else we have. We have like these first name, last name, email, password, confirm password, and another button which will help us in toggling between the sign up component, the login component, and the button to create the account. So what we have to do is similarly the way we did in the login component. What we have to do is set is loading try const response await the and then we're going to mutate it, and we are going to make the query which is going to be called customer create, and the variables are going to be all of these values. And let's use our cursor AI help to finish this off. And if response dot user errors dot length is greater than 0, sorry, so we will throw new error, otherwise we'll just say or success account created successfully, and then we reset the form. Correct. So let's see what API call looks like. So another mutation, customer create, takes in the customer create input which we are passing here, and it again returns back us the customer ID, email, first name, last name, phone, and also the customer user error if there is any. And then we can just log in after signing up and creating the account. Okay, so the next thing that we are going to do is getting all the collections here, and we'll show that all of them here. Right now, I think we already only have 2 collections. If we go to the store and if we go, you can find that here in the collections tab. I already created 2 men and women, so that's what we are trying to get here, and also have like collection query already implemented. So it's the queries get collections. We're getting trying first 100, and we are going to get the ID, handle, title, description, and the image related to that collection. Okay, so what we have to do right now is let's go to our home page. I already have this all collections component or a view created, so you have to go there. Okay, so in the all collection component, what we have to do is make a query, and we're going to use storefront query that we already have, and by our code gen we already have the type that we're going to get from that query, so we can use that. We are going to pass in the query key and the query which is get collections query, and let's see if it takes in any variables. I think it does not, so I think we're good with that. Let's go, let's keep it there. Okay, so let's console log our data and see if we are getting all the stuff. Yes, we do. So let me reload this and we get this. Okay, cool. So now that we have our collections, what we have to do is, we can also get in is loading state. So what we can do is if is loading, we are going to return a skeleton probably. So we are going to do grid calls to, and we are going to have skeleton. Yeah, I'll just do this like for right now. Okay, and let's also add like a bit full to it. Oh, well, I don't know why I have it here, but yeah. Yeah, now we have it. Let's add some margin to our skeleton loader. I think we're good. I think this looks good. So now once we have our data, what we have to do is go to the collections edges, and I think edges.map, that's where we get all the collections. So we are going to render a div here, and we are also gonna make this a grid calls to it. Yeah, exactly the same stuff. And collection order ID, not the image. Let's do the edge one. I think we'll have the title here. Yeah, I mean that's what we want. So we need the image as well. So let's get it from next image. Let's use all of them. Okay. So we need to add it to our Shopify config that we need to allow these images. Okay, so cool, we have it here. We'll just add the description. Let's make this a button, because once we click on this, we want them to go to a new route. Yeah, collection.node.handle. So we'll just add a router here, and we just get it from the navigation. Cool, that's what we want. Okay, so the next thing that we have to implement is our collections route. So I already have this base setup where we have like collections. Under that, we are using a dynamic route called handle, and in that we have a page. So I already have these things imported, which we are going to use, and unwrap params, which is basically, so if we see what it gives you is handle. So which handle we are, same goes here. So what we have to do is we have to again use our storefront query, and we are going to do get collection by our handle query key. Oh yeah, not like this, but so what we can do is we can pass in collections and the unwrapped params dot handle, and in that we are going to pass in our query get collection by handle with pagination query and variables handle unwrap params. So let's see if we're getting the data. Cool, now that we have our data, so what next we can do is we can also get our is loading state, and so add like a loading component. Let's do a length of 10, and also let's add a title. Yep, yeah, first this would be like this. So let's see how it looks. Okay, cool, looks good. And in here we have to get this, and yeah, so I already have this product. Cool, so I already have this product card defined. What it does is basically takes in a product type, which you're again importing from our Shopify GraphQL code gen, and what it does is on click we route them again back to the product description page, and we are rendering the featured image, and we also have one more component. It renders a title and the button to add to cart, and also in the product price what we are trying to do is taking the price range, which is the product price range. So what it has is it is a type money v2, which gives you an amount and a currency code, and the minimum variant price and the maximum variant price. So here what we are doing is formatting the price, and we're using international number format utility function. So this helps us in giving the currency code, and we can format our price like this. And if the minimum variant price is not equal to the maximum variant price, then what we are doing is we are giving in a range. So that's how we achieve this. Okay, so the next thing that we have to implement is the pagination. So I already have the state defined. So I'll give you a brief like what exactly the API info is, the API of collections are returning. So basically what we have is has next page that we will use to see if we have a next page, and so that we enable and disable button based on that. The end cursor. So what cursor is basically, it gives you the current position that you have in the collections list. For example, we are returning we are asking for the first 12, and the current cursor is null. That means we are starting from the initial point and we are getting the first 12. So what we need to do is we have to pass in after variable, which is being asked here, after which is an end cursor that we retained previously. So that means we have to get we are looking for the next 12 elements after the first 12. So that's how we maintain the cursor. So let's try to implement that. For example, if we have a current cursor, just keep on we'll just keep the track of the current cursor, and we set the current cursor to be the new cursor that we have got from the API call. Otherwise, if we don't get it, we keep it null. And same goes here. So what we are doing is, so we are getting the previous cursor. So that means we are going back in the pagination. That means we don't need the so we don't need to append something. We are just trying to we will get the last element that we had. That means the last cursor. And what we are trying to do is create a new array, and we are removing the last element, and we are setting the previous cursor without the last element. That means the new array, and they set the current cursor to the last element cursor, and then we set the current page to the current page -1, and we do like on click handle previous page, and on click handle next page for the next page. And this will allow us to have like pointer events none. If we has this, we can also pass in the disable state as well. It's like doing the same oh, okay, yeah, the previous page does not take in. This is from ShatCN, so yeah. Okay, so now let's see if this works. So if I click on next, let me reload this. Okay, yeah, I think I need to pass in the cursor here. Yeah, so that we can make the API calls whenever the query changes. Okay, let's try that. Next, previous, next, previous, yeah. So yeah. Okay, so the next thing that we have to implement is our product/handle page. For example, if I click on this, we go to product/ the handle for that particular product, and I already have this route set up and also the boilerplate core, which what it does is basically making the using storefront query. It's making an API call to get product by handle query. Let me go to the actual query. So what it does is it passes in the handles, get the ID, title, description. I don't think we need description, HTML, description, product type, tags, vendor, also not these. The price range, the images that we need, we're getting the first 10. The options that we have available, for example, size and colors, there can be many variants as well. So we're getting the variants as well, probably the first 100. So yeah, and I also have like the is loading state, which is just there for the loading state. So let's see if we are getting our data. Okay, cool. So we are getting our product data, which includes images that we need, and also the options and all the variants that we have available. For example, there are 4 variants because of the 4 options that we have. Okay, so now let's render our images that we are getting from the APIs. So I already have a component defined for rendering out this carousel. So what it takes is images as image edge, and yeah, we can see our. So I'll just give you a basic overview. You can read through the code later on as well. So what it uses is Embla Carousel React, which gives you a neat APIs for handling with carousel. For example, scrolling to previous, scrolling to next. And here what we're doing is just setting up the Embla APIs, and on select, that means when we select on this, we scroll to the correct position. That's what you're doing. So yep, that's what it does. Okay, next thing that we need is basically the detail of the product. So what we can do is we can yeah, and this thing. So for example, we're getting the heading here from the data.product.title, the description. The product option is another helper function or a helper component that I've already defined. So what it does is okay, we do not need this, I guess, and the type is in types. Okay, cool. So what it does is we all if we go and explore the data type, we have something called options. So these are the variant options that this particular product has. For example, these color options. This is what this renders out, and it takes in the option selected option. That means the things that we have selected. Based on that, we will change the. So we don't need this class effect, and based on that, we just show which one is selected. We will implement this now. After we'll do it through the state management, and then we have product price, which we have already seen before, and then the button to add to cart. Okay, so now let's implement our state to handle this color selection. Now let's define the state for selected options, which is going to be this, and the selected variant. So we need to state for one selected option, and based on that selected option, we find the variant. We need the variant which is present here, so that we can get the variant ID. This is what we use to calculate the cart pricing. So you'll find it here, yeah. So we need to store this variant based on the selected options. So for example, if the color is khaki, then the variant ID is supposed to be this, and this variant will be used to calculate our basically our cart total and also generating the cart checkout URL. Now we need to implement our function, which is going to be called handle select options. So what we'll do is we'll find the variant based on the options that we have. So basically what it is doing is we're going through the all the variant edges, and then we are trying to match the key and the value pair, for example the name and the value. So based on the selected options, for example, if we have a okay, let's save this, and we need to also set the selected options to the options from what we are getting. So we'll use the selected variant once we have the cart functionality ready. But before that, let's see how the selection work. For example, if I select this, that means we have our khaki selected. And we'll also make it disabled. Yeah. So if we don't have any selected variant, that means this will be disabled. If we do have, then it will be enabled. That means we can add it to cart, for example, like this. Okay, so now let's implement our cart functionality. I already have a bunch of functions and boilerplate code set up for doing these cart CRUD operations, and also a global state to maintaining the cart. So let's explore this functionality one by one. So what we're using is Jotai, which is a Atom-based global state management. And then we have this import from Shopify client, which is a fetch GraphQL. This is a GraphQL client which will help us in making these queries. Then we have a bunch of types imported from our Shopify code generator types. So I already have this cart state setup, which is basically what we get from get cart. So what it gives us is ID, checkout URL, not, and the cost of that particular cart right now, and the line items, all the line items that are present in the cart, and each of them has a cost associated to that, the ID and the quantity, and the merchandise is what we use. Is the selected variant for that particular product, and we have like selected option and the ID and the price of that particular variant. And then we are also resolving the product inside that, so that we when we create our cart page, we can use this information to show in the UI. And then we have the initial cart state, which is using the cart state type, and this is just for initializing our cart atom. So we have this cart atom, which is using cart state and initialize cart state. Then I have this helper function defined, calculate line item cost, which is used in calculating cart totals. So this is also a helper function to calculate cart totals, and what it does is it goes through all the edges, or I would say all the line items, and sum them up, and then return it for that particular line item. So this we will see when we get to our custom hook. That's where we are using this. And then we have helper functions to interact with our APIs, which is add to cart, update cart item, remove from cart, and create cart. So let's explore how the GraphQL query looks like. So it is a mutation add to cart which takes in cart ID and the cart line input. So let's see how the cart line input looks like. So what it takes in is the merchandise ID. That means the variant ID that we're trying to add to our cart and the quantity of that particular merchandise. Similarly, for update cart items, it takes in the merchandise ID and the line item that we have defined using our add to cart API call, and the quantity or whatever we want to update basically. And then remove from cart, what it does is it takes in line IDs, that means an array of IDs that we want to remove from that cart. And create cart is basically we want so that we can get our cart ID. And this is remove from cart. Let's go to create cart. So what it takes is line item. So initially we are sending empty, an empty array because we don't have anything on our cart added, but we want to initialize it. Okay, so now I have this custom hook already defined, which will help us in doing the mutation on our cart atom. So let's what it has is basically helper functions, for example, add item, update item, and remove item, and initialize cart at the end. So let's explore each one of them one by one, and see like what exactly these functions are doing. So what add item takes in is merchandise ID and the ID that we want to update with the quantity. So what we do is what we do is we compare with our current line item if that particular merchandise ID is present. If that particular merchandise ID is present, then we update the current line item ID instead of creating a new line item because we already have it present. So if we found that, then what we do is we make an API call to, let's close this, API call to update cart items, and it takes in the cart line update input. That means the things that we are updating with the, let's go back. For example, the current line item ID and the quantity of that particular line item that we are trying to update. Then I have this helper function which is calculate cart totals. So it update the total. So what it does is we set the initial cost and the total quantity to 0, subtotal and total quantity to 0, get the currency code, and then what we do is calculate per line cost. That means we have to calculate each node item's cost as well, by using another helper function which is price, quantity, and currency code, which what it does is just multiplies price into quantity and make it to fixed 2. So here we have like updated edges. That means we are updating each line item with the particular cost that is that we're calculating because of the change in the quantity. And then we are assuming that there is no tax or additional fees. Then the total is equals to subtotal, and then we are returning our subtotal amount, which is subtotal dot to fixed, and the currency code for similarly goes for the total amount, and then we don't have a total tax amount which is null, and then the total quantity that we are maintaining here, and updated edges, which is this where we calculate the cost for each of the line items. And then we get this and we update our cart atom with all of those information that we get. For example, we update with the lines, or I would say like the line items, and the cost, the subtotal amount, total amount, and the total tax amount, and the total quantity. If we don't have that particular merchandise ID present in our current cart state, so what we do is we create a new line item and we call it add to cart. We call add to cart and we send the cart ID and the merchandise ID and the quantity that we want to add. And after that, we await it. After that, we again make an API call to get the current updated cart, because all of these line items would have been added, so that we can be sync with the server, and then we set the cart with the updated cart. Okay, so for the updated item, it takes in again merchandise ID and the quantity. So if the quantity is less than equal to 0, that means we have to remove that particular line item. So because we can't add anything and we are the user has set the quantity to 0, that means they don't want it, so we have to remove it. So if that is the case, that we have the merchandise ID and the quantity is less than or equal to 0, then what we do is we call remove from cart, and we send in the cart ID and the lines remove line item ID. Then we again perform our cart total because the quantity has changed, and then we again update our cart atom and set the cart. Then if that's not the scenario, then what we do is lines to update. That means we find the merchandise ID, and then what we do is we update the quantity based on that merchandise ID, and then we again call the update cart item API call, again calculate our cart total and then set the cart. In remove item, we just takes in merchandise ID, and we find if that merchandise ID is present in our cart, then we remove it, and we just call remove from cart API with cart ID and the line item ID that we're trying to remove. Then we again calculate the cart total because the quantity and also the line item has changed, and then we set the cart with the updated with the calculated uh, amounts. Okay, so at the last we have initialize cart. So the way we are doing it is using local storage. So whenever we are trying to create a cart, we what we get is a cart ID, and we store it in local storage. So we find the local storage. If the cart ID is not present, that means we don't have any current cart created. We create a new cart and then just set the cart ID to new cart.id, and we set the item cart ID in the local storage. And here we are making the get cart with that cart ID and setting the initializing the cart with the server state. Yeah, that is it. Okay, so now let's initialize our cart and also show a badge or a floating number whenever a cart line item is updated here. So what we'll do is we'll go to our navbar component, and we get our current cart as well as initialize cart from our sorry use cart actions, and we'll do this. If the current card doesn't have a checkout URL, that means it was defined locally and it is not synced with server. So if we go to a use cart action, and if we go to create cart, or if we go to our initialize cart, say that means this is a checkout URL that we are setting and it is not from the server. That means it is local and it is not synced with the server. So what we have to do is we have to call initialize cart function, and let's go and initialize cart. As we know in the initialize cart, okay, here, yeah, as we know in the initialize cart, we are making an API call to create a cart if we don't have a local storage item, which is a cart ID. That means if we have it, we'll use that cart ID. If we don't have it, we create a new cart. So that's what we are doing here. And then we also need to add like cart or total quantity, and we have to show it in a badge. Okay, so let's reload this and let's inspect, and let's see in our application local storage we get a cart. Yeah, so this so it initialized the cart perfectly. Okay, so now we have our initialization of the cart and the badge there set up. Let's go to our product. Okay, I was on that already. So what we have to do is we have to import add item from use cart actions. That means we're going to add an item once user click on add to cart. So const handle add to cart, and we are going to call our function if we have a selected variant, and then we add an item selected variant id dot id and 1. So we'll once we click on that, we should be able to add an item. So let's try that. In here we select olive, add to cart, and yeah, I think it should be good. Okay, so we're not seeing the cart being updated, so let's go to our navbar And let's see what is the current state of the cart. We click on that. Yeah, we get this. Perfect. If we add one more, yeah. So as we can see, our badge is updating, and that is great. Okay, so at the end, what we have to do is we have to redirect our user to checkout URL when they click on this. That means they want to check out and they're happy with their cart. So what we have to do is we have to go to here and add a on-click handler, which will just call router.push, and we'll do cart.checkout URL. If we don't have the checkout URL present, we'll just take them to the home page. So if I click on this, it should take me to the checkout URL. Great. Then I can add my contact detail, delivery address, payment detail, and then pay now. And then we'll have an order on our Shopify account. Okay, so I think we are at a good stopping point for this tutorial. Now you have your fully functional e-commerce website built with Shopify Storefront APIs and Next.js. You can take this as a starting point and you can customize it however you want according to your brand and the business needs. Okay, so I wanted to give a small plugin to my agency called Webmaker Studio. We help early stage companies and e-commerce brands to build custom apps, MVPs, or storefronts. If this sounds interesting to you, please feel free to reach out to me. And hey, if you really like this video, please share, like, and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow and keep me motivated to create more content like this. See you in the next one. Bye.